Butte County Community Assessment, created and narrated by Alexis Haggerty. Butte County is known as the land of natural wealth and beauty. You see the red highlighted county on the map of California. It consists of 1,639 square miles of land, 38 square miles of water. The population as of the 2015 census was 225,411 people. They boast that they are the largest urban population north of Sacramento in the state of California. There's an average of just over 134 people per square mile. The 5 main cities are Chico, Oroville, Paradise, Gridley, and Biggs. This county is about 90 miles north of Sacramento, about a 3-hour drive to the San Francisco Bay Area. There's a lot of farmland and forest in this, but the farmland produces crops. Some of the crops are rice, walnuts, almonds, olives, and fruit trees. The Sierra Nevada and the Cascade mountain ranges meet in this county. There's a Feather River creates a Feather River Canyon, which is one of the most beautiful drives in the whole state of California. Along this canyon, there's breathtaking views, natural hot springs, and sandy beaches that I used to swim at as a kid in the summertime, although it's a little bit frigid because the river is fed by snow runoff. In Oroville, there's Table Mountain, and in the springtime, it's nice to go up there and fly kites and look at the wildflowers in bloom. They also have besides Tabletop Mountain, they have the Lake Oroville Dam, which is an earth-fill dam, and it's the tallest dam in the U.S. And the Sacramento River also flows through the county, and it's got its own recreation. A lot of the college kids in Chico, where the California State University is located, like to float down the river, especially on Labor Day every year. Also in Chico, there's a park called Bidwell Park. It's one of the largest municipal parks in the U.S. as well, and it's about 11 miles long. Demographically speaking, there's a large white population. The white population is about 73.5%. The next largest population is the Hispanic population. They're about 15.5%. There's about 4.5% of the population is Asian, and American Indians are at 2.5% of the population. About 1.8% of the population is Black, and there's just over 4% of the population that identifies as 2 or more races. About 7.5%, or a little over 7.5% of the population is foreign-born, and there's a good chunk of the population at just over 17% that are veterans, and that's probably due to the fact that Beale Air Force Base is located just south of this county. So as far as ages of the population, children make up just over 5%. Children under 5 years make up just over 5%. Children under 18 years make up about 1/5 of the population, or just over 20%. Adults over 65 years, seniors, they make about 17% of the population. Moving on to cultures and values. I feel like a living arrangement is possibly cultural influence and possibly economically influenced as well. just over 79% of the population keeps their living arrangements consistent from year to year. So they're not moving around a lot. The average amount of people per house is just over 2.5 people. At home, just over 13% of the population speaks a language other than English. Interestingly, I found a statistic that almost 66% of the population in Butte County don't practice religion. This is not to say that they don't identify with a certain religion, they just don't practice it. And the statistics of the population that do practice religion is mostly Christian-based identity. I grew up in Oroville, and they have a large Hmong population, and so I got to experience that culture a lot growing up. In fact, in Oroville, there are 2 locations for the Hmong cultural centers, and they're open to the public, so it's kind of neat to be able to share that. And if you wanted to look more curiosity about culture in this county, you could go to the Bidwell Mansion and see a little bit of the history of Chico. And there's also an art center in Chico, and there's a really neat old theater in downtown Chico called the El Rey Theater, and they like to do midnight showings on the weekends of classic films like The Goonies or E.T., things that are been out for a while, but it's neat to go to an old theater that has fairies painted on the ceiling and watch that. Up in Paradise, they have a performing arts center, and in Oroville they have a Chinese temple that's neat to visit. And there's also, up in the Kelly Ridge area of Oroville, there's a visitor center, and you can learn all about Ishi, the last wild Indian that wandered down because he was the last one of his tribe. He wandered down into the town of Oroville in 1911, and the University of San Francisco, or University of California, San Francisco, brought them back and started to study him, and they have a whole display there up at the visitor center in Oroville. Economically speaking, the main industries in this county are agriculture, manufacturing, retail, healthcare, and you see a picture there of a rice field in Butte County. This is one of the less expensive places to live in the state of California. The median home value you see there is just over $220,000. An average monthly mortgage is just over $1,500. Educationally, 88% of the population graduates high school, and 25% of the population has a bachelor's degree or higher. Unfortunately, there is a large percentage of the population that lives in poverty, almost 22%. There's also a large percentage of the population that have grandparents living with their grandchildren. Back in 2014, the census showed that 4,400 grandparents lived with their grandchildren in Butte County, and of that amount, half of those were actually financially supporting their grandchildren. So that is not just a cultural thing, it's economic too. The industries vary from city to city. In Chico, your biggest industry there, they have a large hospital, but there's also the college there, the Chico State College. And Gridley and Biggs are known as the farm communities. And Paradise has a large retirement community. And Oroville is the county seat, so they have a lot of government jobs there, as well as a cannery and some lumber mills. Each of these towns have their well-off areas and their not so well-off areas. In Oroville, the locals call the area where it's a high crime rate and low income, they call it South Side. And in Chico, the area that you don't want to be caught in after dark is called the College Town area. As far as healthcare goes, just over 13% of the population doesn't have health insurance. There's a shortage of primary care providers, just like across the U.S., similar thing, but the shortage of primary care providers is possibly due to the providers not wanting to move out to a mostly rural area like Butte County. There are public health clinics available in both Oroville and Chico, and they offer women's health and children's health and a lot of free services there. So that's a good thing. And safety, the Butte County boasts that they have the largest fire department in Northern California, north of Sacramento. But that's probably because Butte County has historically had a lot of fires, so that's a danger. And as far as transportation goes, the people's average commute to work is 20 minutes. There's a lot of community transportation options. The B line you see pictured there is the bus line that goes all through Butte County, and Amtrak has a station in Chico, and Greyhound has stations in all the major cities as well. So mortality, morbidity, and major health issues. Mortality, the major cause of mortality or death is cancer, and it starts with lung cancer, colorectal, prostate, and female and breast cancer. And that's in order of prevalence. Cancer is followed by coronary artery disease, chronic lower respiratory disease, unintentional injuries, Alzheimer's disease, cerebral vascular disease, drug-induced deaths, and finally diabetes. The leading cause of morbidity is chlamydia, followed by gonorrhea, tuberculosis, and AIDS. Some of the major health issues in this community are substance abuse, obesity, environmental pollution, and homelessness. The picture here I chose is from the Butte County Sheriff's Department. This is a woman when she, after pre and post meth addiction, and methamphetamine is one of the substance abuse issues in Butte County. Community strengths and resources. One of the biggest community strengths I see is the ability to just get fresh produce at farmers markets located in all the major cities. Plus, there's all kinds of roadside stands that have fresh produce available, and it's affordable. So that was one of the major things I missed about this community when I left. It was a bit of a culture shock to not be able to go get fresh produce whenever I wanted in other parts of the U.S. I'm encouraged by the fact also that breastfeeding mothers are 92% mothers breastfeed, and that beats the national objective that was set for breastfeeding by at least 10 percentage points. So that's very encouraging for the community health. The picture you see down on the right-hand side of the screen is Lake Oroville, and the dam there that I mentioned is the tallest in the U.S. It's beautiful. You can ride or bike across that dam. It's 1 mile across. So that's something I used to do for recreation. The picture with the people swimming is at Bidwell Park. It's 1 mile. It's called 1 Mile, and it's a cemented public pool that is fed by a creek there, and that's called the Polar Plunge. So they go out there when it's freezing cold outside and all get in the freezing cold water and swim across. And in addition, there's hiking, lots of bike trails, lots of parks, camping, plenty of aquatic recreation and fishing, a few golf courses located in Chico, Paradise, and Oroville, and there's also a lot of horse trails up and around the area. As I mentioned, substance abuse is a major community health problem, and the two substance abuse issues that I thought were important to highlight were the alcohol abuse in the college population in Chico and the methamphetamine addiction in Oroville. In the college population, the culture of the community there almost encourages drinking, and it is really seems dangerous. There's bars located in the downtown area, and it is a party every weekend with house parties open. A lot of the fraternity houses throw parties that can swell up to hundreds of people, and it's fairly dangerous. There's a lot of liquor stores, and they're even located out in housing communities, which I think there could be something done about the number of liquor stores and the location of them as far as encouraging drinking. The National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism says that 4 out of 5 college students drink, and of those, half of them are binge drinking. Some of the serious consequences of drinking are alcohol-related injuries, death, assault, rape, academic problems, suicide, and other health problems. In Oroville, I think that methamphetamine addiction is the largest problem. There was a report by the Federal Drug and Enforcement Agency that Oroville was the 5th or 4th largest producer of meth in the entire state of California. And that really says a lot because it's not a very large community. And I've grown up seeing meth addicts, and now that I've lived all over the U.S., I really realize what a big problem it is there, because I just don't see it like that in other parts of the country. This picture here that I put on here is from a drug bust where there's children that are being raised in meth houses, and it's part of the problem that these children are not just they're going to grow up and they're going to be exposed to this and possibly become meth addicts themselves because of the being exposed by their family. Alcohol abuse is partly due to the culture of the college community in Chico. I think a lot of the problem stems from that culture. So it has to be, the community campaigns have to be focused on changing the culture there, and there's going to have to be some public policies, like I mentioned before, the amount and location of liquor stores and how easily it's accessible. They might even be able to make an ordinance that there can't be parties of over 20 in a certain area of town, to lower the risk of those large house parties forming. And some of the organizations that can help with that, I think the University of California, Chico needs to get involved. Local government needs to make those ordinances. Police department's going to be very important in enforcing ordinances and also surveilling what's going on. There might be also some help from the Chico chapter of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Methamphetamine addiction, I think, is fueled by poverty and passed down from generation to generation. I think some of the interventions that would be useful would be starting education in the schools and intervention programs and social programs in the schools, elementary schools, even preschools, just finding what families need help and getting them treatment and providing them with counseling and just the necessary things to try to stop that powerful addiction. To stop poverty, there's going to need to be some access to better jobs. There's not very many good paying jobs in Oroville, and there's a lot of poverty there. Some of the organizations, like I mentioned, are going to be the school district, the public health department with the treatment programs. Local government's going to have to make some policies to prevent the manufacturing of this and prevent it from being passed down from generation to generation. Local businesses can help out by promoting a drug-free atmosphere and possibly helping get these people back into society once they've gotten clean. The police department will also help with surveillance, and I'm sure there will be plenty of community volunteers needed, and the community will need to be educated on how to help these people. So this concludes my PowerPoint presentation, but I'd just like to say I do think Butte County is a healthy community because of the fresh produce, outdoor recreation, and there's quality education available there. But I moved back there from 2013 to 2014 because my husband was deployed, and I brought my two daughters back there. We moved back to Chico for a year, and I tried to look for a nursing job, and I had a hard time finding one, and I talked to some other nurses that I ran into that had been looking for jobs for months and couldn't find a job in that area. So I think economically speaking, there's just not very good employment opportunities here, even for nurses, and that's not really something you see across America, that the nurses are having a hard time finding jobs. There's also the health problems. I don't want to risk raising my daughters in an area that has such rampant substance abuse problems. I just think that's dangerous. But, I've traveled across America for the past 12 years because I'm a veteran in my husband's military, and I've seen the places to live out there. This is one of the most beautiful, exciting, fun places to live, and I miss it a lot, but I won't go back to stay there for good as long as those issues are there. The picture on the left is my daughters at the creek that runs through Butte Park. In the middle, that's me after hiking to the Feather Falls hike in Oroville. In the upper right, I ran the Almond Blossom Run with my mom, and it's beautiful. You run through an almond orchard, and all the flowers are blooming pink, and it's a really fun run. In the lower right, also in Bidwell Park, there's a really neat children's playground, and right there my daughters are playing in the Humpty Dumpty sand pit. Thank you for watching my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.